I've just completed the Atlas Mountain Race 2024, earning this t-shirt, this fetching cap, and of course, a completed brevet card. But what I got most from doing the event is a shed ton of knowledge that I'd like to share with you today. I'm making this video to reflect upon my time at the race and share with you some thoughts that might help you if you decide to take part in the Atlas Mountain Race 2025. However, many of these lessons I've learned will be applicable to other ultra races, long distance cycling events and bikepacking trips. This is all coming from me as a fairly amateur ultra cyclist, not a super athlete who's at the front winning in these races. Before I dive in, the Atlas Mountain Race is a 1,300 kilometre self-supported bikepacking ultra event that takes place in Morocco every February. It starts in Marrakesh and there's over 21,000 metres of climbing. You can see how I got on during this year's edition in my video, which I've linked below in the comments. There are a number of things that went well for me, and that included my training leading into the event, in which I think I was really consistent, building my fitness using both indoor and outdoor sessions. I didn't do any massive long rides before the event, probably up to about 6 hours, and in part that's due to it being the winter in the UK and the amount of wet weather we've had. I'd rather be able to have that consistent training without having a massive weekend of riding, building a huge amount of fatigue, perhaps making myself ill, which means that I can't train consistently. One thing I changed in my training this winter, going back to about October time, was I've started doing strength work in the gym twice a week, and I think this has been really helpful preventing any injuries and actually not really being uncomfortable on the bike throughout the whole event. I'll definitely be continuing my strength training throughout the year. Despite the amount of training I did do, I don't think I went into the event in peak condition. I wasn't super fit, but actually the event itself acted as a, rather large winter training camp that will hopefully be beneficial for my events that I'm going to do later in this year. Secondly, before the event I was torn between whether to use a dynamo or a power bank, and I know this is a question a lot of you also had. I chose to run with a power bank and it worked really well. I use this Anker 737 power bank paired with this Minex fast charger, and using this I was able to charge my phone, my headphones, my Garmin, my exposure light and my rear light. I never ran out of power, and I was able to charge the battery really quickly using the fast charger when I stopped for food at a cafe. Typically it charged from about 50% capacity up to 100% in less than half an hour, and the cost of the power bank and fast charger was significantly less than you would pay for a dynamo. Of course there are pros and cons to each setup, and I'm not going to get into that in this video. Thirdly, I think my pre-race admin was really on point. I knew where to get a SIM card, where to get money out, to change the money for smaller denomination notes, because when you're in the mountains no one takes card, and if a load of riders are gone through already they might not have change. I knew where the local supermarkets in Marrakesh were where I could get food, where the decathlon was for any last minute bits and pieces, and how to get to the race hotel from where we were staying and how long it would take. This significantly reduced mine and the guy I travelled with's pre-race stress. And finally, what went well was my ability to remain present during the ride, take in that stunning scenery, those amazing sunrises and sunsets, and that stunning night sky. When you're focused on the next 100k, the next checkpoint, the next resupply point, the finish, it's sometimes quite easy to forget where you are and why you went there in the first place. Yes, it's nice to finish in the quickest time possible, but it's also important to remember, for many of us, this is a pastime and you're getting to ride somewhere we may not have ridden before, so take some time to really savour that experience of riding somewhere new and completely different. There are of course many things I didn't expect, things that didn't go quite so well, and areas that I would like to improve as a result of doing the Atlas Mountain Race. Before the event took place, like anyone, I spent ages researching the event and watching all those videos from 2023 where the weather got really cold, well below zero many times during the event. As such, I got fairly fixated on taking the right kit to remain warm, and I kind of forgot Morocco does get quite hot, in this case well into the 30s, and despite the fear of it being -10, at night I don't think it ever got below about 4 degrees. So my kit choices really were too warm, and I spent a lot of time riding around in just my base layer, but on the plus side it did mean I never got too cold. Later in this video, with the power of hindsight, I'm going to review the kit I took and what changes I would make. Dogs were not on my radar at all, and if you saw my video about the event you'll have seen I had a few encounters. I hadn't researched this or what I'd do if I did get chased by a dog, so there were quite a few scary moments, especially during the night. If I did the event again, I'd probably come up with a few strategies about how I might deal with stray dogs, other than pedalling away as quickly as I could. Getting enough calories in was also a lot harder than I expected, particularly because where I was in the race, when I arrived at a resupply, perhaps 50 or 60 riders had already gone through, and on some occasions there wasn't much food left. Luckily, I had decided to take some dehydrated porridges and protein shakes with me, which did give me a good start and end to the day. The issue was in between this, and sometimes the food you could get wasn't that calorifically dense, and there's only so many packs of biscuits you can eat day after day. So if I were to do it again, I'd probably take some additional food like Haribo's, energy bars, extra dehydrated meals, and make sure I stop at every single resupply point. Another area I'd like to improve on is my general faffing time, especially when it comes to setting up and packing away my sleep equipment. For some reason, I could easily spend half an hour setting up and half an hour packing away. So compared to some people, that's wasting a lot of time every single day. This is something I'm going to get a bit more practice of and hopefully reduce the amount of time I spend faffing around before and after bed. Before the race, I made a video about all the kit I was taking, and with the power of hindsight, this is what I would change. This is the kit I wouldn't have taken or swapped out to reduce the weight I was carrying during the race. First up, the Castelli Gabba, which I think I wore for about 1 hour on one of the days. If it was cold or wet, I had my waterproof jacket, which I still would have taken to provide that waterproof layer, and also a warm layer. The second pair of shorts, which I used for 1 day only. Looking back, I'd have easily got by on the one pair of shorts I took. I was more than comfortable in them. On the theme of being too warm, the Rafa Breve merino jersey wasn't the best idea. I wore it literally on the first night and then spent most of the rest of the race just in my merino base layer. I took a pair of mitts that I didn't wear at all. I mainly wore my long finger mountain bike gloves. Didn't wear the glove liners. I've kept my winter gloves in there because I did wear them during the first night when it was more cold, and I would think I would have kept them in there just to have a backup just in case the weather did change. Second pair of socks, third pair of socks actually, I didn't use them at all, just carried them around. My winter woolly hat, again, didn't wear that at all. I sort of brought it for sleeping but wasn't ever that cold to need it. The old waterproof shoe covers, again, they didn't get used at all. It was raining on that first day, so maybe if we had started in the rain they would have been used, but alas, I carried them around for no particular reason. I had a bike lock I carried around, but never felt I needed to use it. My bike was kind of always in sight and never really felt unsafe wherever we went in Morocco. I'll take my second power bank out. The Anker one I took was absolutely fantastic. It charged really quick, so I'll take out the second spare and an additional lead which I'd have used to charge it. Obviously I got lucky with punchers, but I carried 3 inner tubes around, so perhaps I'd take one of them out, still carry 2 just in case, but I did have a lot of tubeless repair stuff in my toolkit, so I should have been okay. Sleeping at night, my base layer trousers, I did wear them, but it wasn't ever really super cold. I'd say the only benefit these brought were when those dogs appeared when I was setting out my bivvy, it meant that I could escape and not be half naked. I'd change up my 3-season sleeping bag for my lighter summer sleeping bag. Again, it didn't really get super cold at night. And what I would also change is my camelback, which, although it was useful for carrying a few extra bits in like food etc, it was incredibly hot on my back, and I think it was one of the reasons why I was so hot throughout most of the day. But I would still take a camelback vest to carry a bladder so I could carry enough water, and maybe I'd have to add an extra bottle to my frame so I could carry the same amount. Now, using my very scientific method, which includes this luggage scale, which I think I bought from Wish, and this IKEA box, which weighs 90 grams, I'm going to see how much weight I could have saved. So that's saying 4.13 kilograms. When taking off the weight of the IKEA box, that's about 3.2 kilos, which isn't insignificant. But remember, I am substituting out some other kit, so I'm going to give that a quick weigh and then compare the two and work out how much I could have saved lugging about Morocco. Here's the kit I would have swapped out and taken. That's giving me a reading, if you can see it on there, 1.44 kilograms. That could have saved me roughly 2.7 kilos of stuff, so definitely worth considering if I did the event again. Did I just say do it again? So with the power of hindsight, you can see I've saved a fair few kilos there. When I weighed my bike with all the kit on it, it weighed about 22 kilos, kind of knocked off about 10% of the weight I was carrying there. And because the event is mountainous with a lot of climbing, any weight you can save is highly beneficial. It certainly reinforced to me less is more when it comes to bike packing equipment. Just a brief overview of the bike I use, the Trek Pro Caliber. Took the aero bars off when I flew home, but they were really helpful on some of the longer road stretches. Definitely use them again. The SQ Lab mid bar grips were good, but I would change them for the more ergonomic comfort version than the aero version, and my sort of bar ends also serving that purpose of being able to change hand position multiple times. The only real issue I had was my fork lockout gear cable snapping, which was kind of my fault. I think I had the bar bag leaning against it and it slowly wore a kink in the wire, and eventually I kind of just had to rip it out so I could have the forks turned on, because it was a lot more bumpy than it was smooth. Coming down here, got a 32 tooth Shimano chainring with a 51 max size cassette cog on the back. I think I'd probably stay with that, although there were times where I probably would have enjoyed a 30 to be able to spin my legs a bit more, but I don't think I want to go any larger than a 32. The Vittoria Mezcals worked a treat. Didn't get any punctures throughout the whole ride, which was kind of amazing really, considering how far I went on the terrain that I was riding on. So in general, I don't think I'd make any changes to the bike other than perhaps using a different shaped mid-bar grip. I've spent a little bit of time thinking about what 10 tips I'll give someone who is thinking about doing the Atlas Mountain Race in 2025 and beyond. Number 1, it's planning. Working out when and where you'll stop for all-important food and water. Linked to this, number 2, it's stop at every single resupply point. You never know if the next one will be open or have what you need. This is particularly important for things like water, which is always worth topping up at any opportunity you get. Number 3, be flexible and adaptable. Even with this plan, things are bound to go wrong, be it a mechanical, the need to sleep more, or things taking longer than you expected. Number 4, use a mountain bike, preferably a full suspension cross-country mountain bike. The terrain is really rough in places, and the mountain bike will bring you so much more comfort than you could get on a gravel bike. Number 5, when it comes to kit, be prepared to change what you're taking in the lead up to the event, i.e. if a few days before the event the weather looks like it's going to be wet or colder or hotter than you anticipated, actually do consider changing your kit. I can attest to the annoyance of carrying stuff you don't need over 1,300 kilometres. Number 6, it's something I didn't do, but I know some people did, and that's sleep on the first night, perhaps for only a couple of hours. But I think doing that will probably pay off massively later into the event, particularly if you're not contesting those top 10 places. Number 7, spend some time researching that pre and post race admin. It will reduce your stress levels significantly before the event, and you'll go into it feeling much more rested. Number 8, allow some time before the event to make sure your bike's set up okay, and some time after the event to relax and share stories with the other riders. Number 9, despite there being a few, shall we say, overexcitable dogs, the people were absolutely lovely and super kind, so make sure you take some time to speak to them. And number 10, the most important one, for many of us this is an opportunity to ride somewhere completely new and is a once in a lifetime experience. So make sure you savour it and enjoy it. Most people I've spoken to about the event have asked me, would I do it again? At first, I was pretty unsure about this, especially when I just got off the bike at the end. But dangerously, as time's gone by, I've been more inclined to say I'd love to try it again. It was one of the most challenging but rewarding events I've ever done, and I encourage anyone wanting to push themselves or take a step into the unknown to take part. If you've got any questions about the event, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Hopefully this video will provide a starter to help you prepare for a future Atlas Mountain race or another ultra cycling race. And just before I finish, I'd love to say thank you to everyone that cheered me on during the event, watched my dot, sent me messages of encouragement. It really meant a lot, and it kept me pushing through some of those harder moments. I look forward to seeing your name on the start list in 2025. Thanks for watching.